Like if you were to rate yourself on a scale, it's a 1 through 5, 5 being the best possible dad you can be, 1 being complete shit, where do you rate yourself today? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Tim, what's going on, brother?
Hey, how you doing? I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Great. We was just coming off transparently. Tim and I just had, as well as Arthur and the rest of the guys, a call with the guys in the Brotherhood with a special guest speaker talking about startups, business funding, international funding, and some amazing opportunities that really opened my eyes to ways of investing and almost, I guess, tax havens that I wasn't even aware of that existed that are completely legal. So my mind's spinning a little bit with all that great information that Adam, our special guest, provided. So I'm stoked on that.
I love it. They're illegal.
Well, I think when you say tax havens, right, you think about people who are storing money in the Caymans and, all over the world that came out, and I actually know a couple of people that, got caught doing that. And I'm not here to judge them or what have you, but it seems in the U.S. anyway, the government has created these opportunities, and we're not going to talk about that today, but they're legal. And I think that's important. They're incentivizing investors, and through the incentives, they're giving, I would call it extreme tax benefits for those individuals. And it is legal, and that's important to me and my integrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree.
Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. One of the things I thought would be good to throw on the table, Tim, is a topic that comes up for a lot of us fathers that are out there. And, it doesn't come up like as a daily thought, but periodically I have this thought, and I know a lot of the men that I know that are fathers, and especially the ones I look up to, it seems to happen, they're great fathers, and it seems to happen to them more often than not, we ask ourselves, am I a great father? And it may even come off as, am I good? Am I good enough? Am I a good enough dad? Am I doing the right things? Et cetera, et cetera. To the men. So that's a topic I want to bring up today.
Wow. It's I think it feeds into everything else, doesn't it? Being a good husband, being a man, because the problem that I think a lot of men that we deal with, and I'd say the wider audience as well, are dealing with is, they've been fed this lie, and, I believed this for a long time, that, the way to be a man and the way to provide is to go to work and, sacrifice yourself there and really grind it out to make money, because when you do that, then everything will fall into place. But what we found is, the problem with that is the more money that the guys tend to make that we work with, the more chaos it brings with it as well. And then when that happens, they end up trapped in between this position of, their business and their family, but they thought they were doing the right thing in the first place. They thought that the way to be a great father was to provide this home and this lifestyle and these holidays and all the rest of it to their kids. And then they don't have anything left, any energy to actually engage with their kids on an evening. And quite the opposite. They end up being quite short-tempered with the kids, don't they? And that guilt weighs heavily on them. The guys that we work with, Doug, I don't think it's as much of a guilt of, I should be with my kids rather than working. I think that may come up, but they don't speak about that as much. The bigger pain point for our men is that snapping and shouting at the kids and then missing out on, the ballet lessons and the swimming lessons and the school plays and all the rest of it, because, they think that what they've got to do is go out there and make money when, that's not what the kid remembers growing up, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to gently disagree with you here. I think what you're mentioning is the snapping and yelling and, and being short. Those are symptoms of the problem, right? I think these guys do know or realize at times they are working too much. And oftentimes what happens, right, as a man, as a provider, for a lot of us guys anyway, is we have this story that's been ingrained in our head, as you said, is that we need to go out and provide, and then, that's what we do. That's our role in the family. And then we can spend time with our family. After I make $2 million or whatever it is for each individual, then I can go to the ballet lessons, as you said, or the football match or whatever it may be. And I think the snapping and the anger and being short and not present is really a symptom of the problem. It's a byproduct. So I think what happens is, as guys, as fathers, I can certainly speak for myself. When I'm present with my son, as an example, and I'm playing with him, my wife, for example, went out last night, had dinner with friends, and I took care of my son, made dinner, the whole thing. But and it didn't happen to me last night, but every once in a while I sit there and go, man, am I being a good dad? And I don't say good because I want to be a great dad, right? I want to be, it's just who I am. I want to be the best at everything I do, but I want to be a great father. And I ask myself those questions. But I also find myself, Tim, slipping back into those things where, great, I want to provide things for my son, right? I want him to go to the best camps. I want him, he's only 2.5, but I want him to do all these things. And I'm future casting what I want for him, the opportunities that I want for him. And that sometimes leads me to not be as present, or maybe the feeling of not knowing what to do with him to be present. I think that's probably said better, is not knowing what I could be doing. I look at my wife, and my son have such a different bond because we have a little bit more of a traditional relationship. My wife's full-time job is taking care of him. And so, if my son's really scared, he comes to me, but if he gets hurt, he goes to my wife. And there's biochemical reasons that happens with oxytocin releasing, things like that. But back to my point for men and who we're talking to today is, as a father, I ask myself, and the men that we talk to, and I talk to the dads that are in the brotherhood and go through the activation method, as well as guys that are in our Facebook group that haven't gone through our program. And the question comes up often, is, am I being a good father? Am I being a great father? Or, and this is the subtext that comes back from our men, am I repeating the same things that my dad did, that my father did, because that's all I know? And that's a scary thing.
As you were talking there, I thought, well, is there an easy way to answer this? Is it as simple as, am I being a great father? Well, you've been a great man. If you've been a great man, and obviously I don't have children yet, so I'm kind of leaning on you to see your perspective on this. Because as you were speaking, I was wondering, well, how do you know, Doug? How will you know when you're a great father? How will you know when you're arrived at that point, right? Obviously, it's going to be evolving and whatnot. And you've mentioned things in the past about, what you want to, the characteristics that you want to instill in Bodhi. But on a day-to-day basis, what I've been saying that, you can take confidence in knowing that you've been a great father if you feel confident in the fact that you're being a great man.
Oh, I think that's a really good point. I think they go hand in hand, right? They can also be separate. It's kind of like, I would describe health and fitness, right? You can be fit and healthy, but you can also be fit and completely unhealthy, right? And vice versa. So in an ideal world, being a great man also means being a great father. But I can also see, and I have met guys who are amazing men in their own right, and maybe by people's definition, they're going to say, well, you can't be an amazing man if you're not a good father. But by my standards, aren't good dads. And they're not good dads, because they're jerks. I think they're good dads because they don't know what to do, right? They're lost.
What made them great men?
What made them great men is their stand for their community, how they show up in their workplace, the things that they're doing external themselves. They're doing their own work on themselves. They take care of their fitness. They're taking care of their spiritual growth. They're leaders in the community. Just a few examples. But these same guys that the few that I'm thinking about that don't fit the mold of both, right? And it's pretty rare, but there are a few cases. These guys don't know how to be present with their children. And I think it's strictly from a fact, Tim, of, that's probably how they were raised and how their father was and their mother, etc. But they don't know how to be present with a young child. They don't know how to just be with them and be in their world.
And what about being with the wife, like being present there? Are they present?
Well, to my understanding, they are. I'm not in their bedroom with them. That's not what I'm into. But I assume they are. When I've met them and met their wives, they seem to have a very dynamic and great relationship. And I think there's a disconnect. And I think a lot of the fathers out there will understand what I'm talking about. Is a disconnect from some men that don't know how to relate to children, especially young children.
Okay.
And it's pretty obvious. Like you go, nowadays, because I have a 2.5-year-old. I'll go to parties, right? And of course, you start hanging out with people who have kids your age, right? The age of your kids, right? They might be a lot younger than me or older, et cetera, but our children are roughly the same age. And that becomes your association quite often. And so then you get to see how they're interacting. And there's some fathers there that might be standing by the grill or the barbecue and just don't know how to engage, right? They don't know what to do. They look at their kids almost like an annoyance because they don't know how to communicate to them. They don't know how to be present with them. They don't know how to get into their emotional world. They don't understand the states that the children are going through, probably because they haven't taken time to actually study it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say here from, obviously the outside looking in, it's a great position to be having this conversation, without having kids, because I can look at things pretty objectively without looking through the lens of being a father, where I imagine, you've just got such a burning desire to provide for them. But say is, there's a lack of skill there. It's not a lack of, when we spoke about, like, if you're a great man, you can be a great father. What I was thinking then was, well, if you're a great, say you're a powerful man who's compassionate and loving and kind and present, everything that, we know goes into being a powerful man, then surely, it's easy to be a great father because it's just an extension of who you are. But what I'm hearing you say is that isn't enough. You've got to have a skill set. You've got to train yourself and arm yourself with certain skills that enable you to be able to connect with young children and understand what they're going through.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the show, but I wanted to ask you a question. Do you ever feel like something's just missing? Like there's something more out there and you just can't put your finger on it? I totally get it. Go over right now to thepowerfulman.com/freedom to discover the system that other businessmen just like you are using. We've included 10 case studies, 10 men just like you who have found the solution and have found their way on their path. And we want to share that with you. Go over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom right away. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, you have to have, exactly, Tim. It is a skill set. I think some people are naturally just talented towards doing it, and you can see that. Some people are just great with kids, always have been. Some other people aren't, whether it be their own kids or other people's kids and children. But what comes back to the actual point at hand, in my opinion, is the question, the burning question, and the question to probably the fathers that are listening to this, that ask themselves is, am I a great dad? Right? And right now in this moment, you can answer that question, from a cerebral standpoint, right? And logic, what have you, but how do you feel about it? Like if you were to rate yourself, and I'm not asking you, Tim, but I'm asking the guys listening to this, if you were to rate yourself on a scale, let's just say 1 to 5. And I like 1 to 5 because when you do 1 to 10, nobody picks 4 through 6, it seems like. So 1 through 5, 5 being the best possible dad you can be, 1 being complete shit. Where do you rate yourself today in this moment? Not yesterday, not this morning, not this, not what you're going to do after listening to this, but right here in the moment, what do you give yourself as a father, as a role model, as a leader in your family? What is that rating you give yourself? And I would propose to you guys listening to this, if you give yourself anything, less than a 4 for sure, then it's time to take some radical, massive action. So Tim, from my own standpoint, this does come up for me, right? And I've done a ton of work. I read the books on parenting, the psychology, because I'm a dork like that. But my wife and I do. Like we exchange links. She emails me something every couple of days because I have another baby on the way. And so I'm always interested in this and how it also applies to the men that we work with and their belief systems. But still, it comes up to me every once in a while like, crap, am I being a good dad? Am I working too much? Am I not being present when I'm with him? Am I allowing him to watch too much screen time? We don't give much screen time, but is it too much? And it's one of these things that creeps in other areas of our lives, but I'm applying this just to being a father in that role. And I think you need to define it as a man for yourself, what a great father is, and then ask yourself, am I hitting that goal? Whether you're, using a metric or not, or it's just a gut feeling. Are you being a great father? And then the answer is no. Maybe you're just being good. Maybe you're just being okay. But if you're not being a great father, then what steps do you need to take right now in the moment of insight to become a great father? I think those two questions together, Tim, are the ones that really, spur on change and insight with, who you are as a man when we talk about being a powerful man. It's just another element.
And do you think it's a case of working too much or not being present? Because I guess, you could work. I think I'm probably going to answer my own question here, but I was going to say, you could work a lot and then make progress, but then, when you are with your son or your daughter, as long as you're present and fully engaged, surely that would be enough. But I guess maybe it wouldn't be, because if you work too much, then you're going to miss out on certain moments, right?
Yeah, well, it's a couple things. So first of all, I think it's all of them. First, the most important thing is to be present. And I know early on in my relationship with my wife, I ran, at the time, I had 3 companies that I was running. I was the sole owner of 3 businesses. And of course, I wanted them all to be as successful as possible. And when I was with her, I would be with her, but physically, in the sense that I'd be in the room, but I'd also be checking email. I'd be answering questions with staff and doing those kinds of things. And I remember what she said to me. She said, look, I get it. I knew what I was getting involved when I got involved with you. I knew who you were. I knew you ran these businesses. I knew you're ambitious. She's like, what I want from you is just the time you're with me, whether it be one night, whether it be 3 nights, just to be completely with me. And when you're in my presence, like when you're with me, don't be working. Otherwise just go into the bedroom, go somewhere else and do it. And the same thing applies to kids. So being present is number 1. Number 2 is you don't want to work too much. I mean, obviously we all have seasons, right? Business goes through seasons. We go through seasons of life. But you don't want to, well, at least I don't want to be the father that misses those special occasions. Right? I have a very flexible schedule. I work from home, but I also can miss going to the park and feel guilty, right? That's whole nother conversation. But I think you want to be present. You want to make the big events. And it comes down to priorities. As a father, do you want, is success more important to you? Is money more important to you? And of course, we all have to make money. Or is it being the guy that makes it to the baseball game? Or is it being the father that shows up to school, right? What is it for you? And I think those, Tim, are very important things for each man to answer. And very few men sit down in silence and answer these questions for themselves. And that's why when the question comes up, am I a great father? Many men don't know how to answer it. And they'll turn to sedation, drugs, alcohol, porn, or work to hide from that feeling so they can get the feeling of significance from those other things.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it feeds into the initial point, right? That, a lot of men have been taught to believe that the way to provide is to go and make money. Yeah, the way that a lot of men have been taught to provide is to go and, work hard and make money. And that's where a lot of their identity comes from, doesn't it? A great question that we often ask the men is, if I was to take your business away from you today, who would you be? And a lot of the men often realize that, holy crap, if my business was taken away from me today, then I don't really know who I'd be. I wouldn't really know why I was here or what my purpose was or so on. And I think reprioritizing that, and this is where a lot of the guys experience such huge shifts, isn't it, in their relationship when they come out of the alpha reset, because they're actually able to see the truth of how they've been operating and what really matters to them, and then they adjust accordingly. And then they often don't go back. It's very rare that guys actually go back to operating in old patterns. And, that big shift there is in their identity, how they see themselves as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a business owner. And often they then start to prioritize business last. Doesn't mean they don't take action. Of course they do. They love their business still. It's part of who they are, but it's part of who they are, not all of who they are. And as a result, often they then start to make money a lot easier while taking more holidays than ever before. We see that time and time again, right? And it feeds directly into this topic here, in my opinion, of being a great father and prioritizing so you can make the ball games, so you can be at the school plays. Because otherwise, when your identity and self-worth is tied into making money, it's almost like, do I go to the school play or do I make money? So do I sacrifice part of myself and have to give up part of my significance to go to the school play? Or that's a tough position to be in. No one wants to lose anything, right? So yeah, you've really got to look at your identity and what really matters to you.
Well, I agree with you. And I think, again, I think it goes a little deeper than that. And we look at the men as they go through the alpha reset, they come out of that a completely different man. And part of the reason they come out a completely different man is, as men, one, is not really a rite of passage for many of us, but two, who are you? Like, who are you at your essence? Who are you really? Like, who are you as a husband? Who are you as a father? But who are you as a man? And I think, Tim, answering that question sets the tone for the rest of them, right? It sets the tone for the next questions to come about.
I think, I know. It's that loss of identity that has the men cycle through the 5 agonies, right? Because at first they go into greed, whereby, whatever they achieve, however much money it is, or success, or accolades, or cars, homes, holidays, whatever, they're just never satisfied. There's always something missing. And then because of that, and because of the sacrifice that they're making to achieve that, they then start to get frustrated and angry because they know that they want to spend more time with their kids, but they also feel the pull to go and work. And they used to be able to have the answer, but for whatever reason, they don't have the answer to this, hence the anger. It's almost like they're a volcano ready to erupt any moment. And then from there, it goes to the shame when they act out of character, they isolate themselves, 4th agony, loneliness, and then finally uncertainty, because they understand that they can't operate like this forever. Otherwise, the wife is going to leave them, the business will crumble, the kids won't want to spend any time with them by the time they're 10, 11, 12 years old. But it's because at the foundational level, they don't know who they are or what they want. And this isn't anything against them. They've just thrust themselves into business from a young age, believing that that was going to be the answer, only to wind up having made the money or having the cars or whatever, achieving what they thought was the answer and realizing it wasn't. And yeah, the key to really being able to recalibrate, well, we call the alpha reset a reset for a reason, right? Now, the guys come and literally reset their life. And the key to being able to reset your life definitely lies in those 2 points, knowing who you are and what it is you want. Because it's only from that place are you able to actually be the great father, be the great man, be the great businessman, and have the foundation on which to actually build. So often the men keep trying to add flaws to a building that has crumbling foundations. And that's where they end up just breaking down. The marriages are almost crumbling, and they're acting out of character with their kids, and because it's just too much for them. The great men, always great men, but it just ends up being too much.
Awesome. So, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you this question, especially you fathers, and those of you that aren't fathers, you can forward think this, right? Forward pace. But are you a great father? Give yourself that 1 to 5 scale, and if the answer isn't a 5 or maybe a 4, then what is it you need to do right now in this moment to become a great father? And for some of you, it's really rediscovering who you are as a man, redefining who you are as a man, getting those insights. So you have a place to start with, a secure foundation. Because what really matters most to you guys, right? It's your kids if you have them. That's why men will die for their families quite often. And then, same thing for you guys. If you don't have kids yet, but what does it mean to you to become a great father? What does a great father look like? And how can you create your life and your lifestyle around that? So, gentlemen, that's all for us for today and for this episode. We'll see you on the next time on the Powerful Man Show.